All right, we have made some progress and a couple dilemmas that we weren't really expecting. The biggest one is me and Bryce, and I'm sure a few others, we don't like the look of when you body swap a truck and you can see the newer style frame hanging down a ton and it looks like it's just a gigantic body lift and it's just slapped on there. We don't like that look. Our problem is if we want our bed and keep the factory bed floor to sit completely flat on this second gen frame, this, according to our math, we're gonna pop the bed on here in a sec. This is how high the body will have to be for the body line of the bed to continue straight with the bed sitting flat here on the risers. And then obviously we would build some bed mounts up here to make it flat in the front. I mean, the other option we can do is cut the bed floor out like we've done a million times and bring everything down. But then our measurements here get a little bit close as far as our distance from, the top of the tire to the inside of the bed right here. And with the other truck, we did have the paddle make contact, and these are expensive and it was not ideal. And those other paddles were 39s. These are 35s. We still have the other ones, so we can kind of play around whatever's going to fit the truck the best. It would be kind of a shame to have all this travel in the rear and not be able to use it all because we're going to hit there. I mean, most of the big trucks that you see that party really hard, they have fiberglass. We don't really want it. So there's going to be a lot of math of finding that happy medium of low enough down on the frame to where it looks nice, but still enough articulation. So once we kind of get it where we think it's close, we're going to monoleaf the back. So basically we're going to take this leaf pack apart, measure the distance of this leaf pack, put a spacer back in there, but just have this big top leaf spring in place, and then take the front coils out of the front, and we'll mount the frame on jack stands, and then just sit there and articulate everything all the way through and see where we have contact before we, full turn, this way, that way, see where we have contact or where we don't. And, that we won't burn anything, 100% until after we do that. But that's kind of our thought process on the next steps to picking where we want it to be. Other issue, just like we thought, these fenders, or the hole here is not square. Obviously it kind of slopes in the back, a little bit steeper in the front. It's hard to measure it because it's not symmetrical, but this little pink dot right here is what we think is the center and what would look nice. And I would say the axle right now is already about an inch behind that. But as this axle cycles and compresses, it will come forward, not a ton. I mean, what do you think? 5/8 of an inch, not crazy, but something you still got to account for. So that's kind of our dilemma, is just getting all that figured out. And then obviously if we have it at this height right here, to have a factory bed floor and to sit all flush, I mean, you're never going to be able to see the engine and all that. I mean, this thing's going to be so tall. Like, this fender is not mounted securely. When this is all up and square, it's going to be another few inches higher. And I mean, you're not really going to see much that's going on. Our next thing, I would say, is the bed first, to see exactly where it sits on there. But then we got to decide if we want to use a second gen intercooler and radiator. Another thing that we did, we originally mocked everything up with the factory motor mounts on the 12 valve. And the engine was way too far forward. There was no way there was going to be clearance between the core support for even a radiator with a traditional fan. We need a traditional fan. We've had E-fans. They're all right, but I don't think they have enough cooling capacity for when this thing's making hits. This is more than a drag race hit, 12 seconds, 10 seconds, whatever. Going up all these steep, long dunes is a lot longer than that, and there's a lot more load, in my opinion. So E-fans aren't going to cut it, so we have to stick with that fan. The first thing we did, though, is we're looking online for different motor mounts. We were going to make some, but then we called Full Hook, and he told us that 24 valve motor mounts, like VP motor mounts, will actually move the engine about, I don't know, it's got to be 4 to 5 inches backwards. So you can see we have those on a 12 valve, and then I'm assuming when they're on a 24 valve, the casting in the block is in a different spot to get it back forward. But that's kind of a little trick that you can do if you are kind of doing something like this. If you do need to move the motor back, find some motor mounts like that. And then we are going to do solid motor mounts once this is all done, just to kind of eliminate any flex or weird stuff that could happen. But that did give us a ton of room in the front. So we can have some room to play here. The other problem that we're also running into now is if we do run a traditional, you know, like a 3.0 here with like Thurin's fabricated tower, this isn't a big deal, but our compounds are, you know, the S488 is going to literally be right where the shock tower is. So now we're going to have to completely fab up basically a new compound kit, you know, and mount. But what'll be cool is if we solid motor mount this, we'll be able to tie into the frame for support for this big charger, maybe even up here in the fender, whatnot. So that will be nice, because that's kind of our biggest fear, and what a lot of people, you know, told us doing this with having compounds is they're just scared, you know, hitting the whoops, hitting the bumps, that big turbo is just going to fall off and break them out. So that'll be nice when we can do all that. But yeah, I think we're going to get the bed on here.
Welcome back. So, went down to Summit Racing, got some cab mounts for this truck, new bushings, new hardware, new sleeves, all that. My plan of attack here is utilizing the factory cab mounts off of the 69 frame and putting them onto the second gen frame, which might work out pretty well, honestly. The frame width is pretty similar. I mean, it's within maybe like an inch. Being that the kit that I purchased isn't the exact perfect snug fit for this truck, that gives me a little bit of playing room and a little bit of wiggle room to where I can get the cab really where I want. So that's what we're going to be working on today. Unfortunately, I cut all the cab mounts off with a plasma cutter, which, I mean, not unfortunately, but what that means for me is I'm going to spend the next hour and a half grinding all those smooth, because where the second gen body mount kickers like these were on the frame is relatively close to where these are going to be. So I'm going to grind them smooth, take care of all that, and bring this thing back down, get these all tacked up. Kind of sucks, the body's a little bit tall, but we got to be able to utilize that suspension. So the rear cab mounts might be a little difficult because it is quite the reach to get up to that elevation, but we're going to see what we can do. I might have to run some spacers of some sort, or I might have to completely redesign these and bring them up on top of the frame. I don't know. We'll see. This is kind of a little bit different than the C20 that we built. So C20 was pretty easy. You just lay it on the ground and put the frame where you want it, reach in, tack the mounts, and pick it back up. So this is what we got to do today. Pick the cab up, ratchet strap it to the arms because I really don't want to drop this thing, and then grind the frame flat, get these things all tacked up. Okay, so this is what we got going on. I need the most pretty thing in the world, but it's going to do just fine. So I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, and then I'm going to run a piece of 2-inch, 1/8-inch wall tubing across the tops so they're connected. So other dilemma here is the fact that when we picked the body up, the body was seized to the cab mount, and the cab mount was seized to the cab mount on the frame. So it blew a hole right through the bottom of the cab. So what we're going to do is we're going to square this up, cut it out probably about 1 inch back on each side, and then I'm going to replace this with 3/16 steel, just so it has, you know, I mean, the metal's not the strongest, obviously, it's a little rotted, but I don't want to cut out of all of this little bracing set right here, because I don't know, I'm doing the math in my head, and I don't think that a single layer like this is going to be strong enough. But yeah, that's where we're at with this. And then, of course, in the middle of all this, I'm trying to go up and down with the 2-post lift. The start capacitor blew up, so I'm going to go to Granger and get a new one, and then we'll be back at it. Good news. Very good news for this little guy right here. We got the cab mounted, as you can see, maybe. The 2-post lift is no longer underneath the cab. Put the cab mounts on. Everything's all good there. Now I kind of want to focus on getting the bed closer to the cab and utilizing the entire rear wheel well that I can, because on these trucks, the front wheel well The front of the rear wheel well is straight, and the rear kind of has like a 40-degree angle to it. So I kind of got to get that tire back and tucked up, if you know what I mean, just because of suspension. Utilizing the suspension, I want to do that. This truck, I could have brought the cab down. I mean, 3.5 extra inches. Now we have enough room, but we got to get a few things buttoned up here. Everything's all tack welded. Everything's all set up, ready to go. But like I was saying, bring that bed forward, get that bed gap closed up a little bit more, because right now it's about 1.5 inches too long. Bring it forward and then keep on going. But I kind of screwed myself. I threw out the factory second gen bed mounts. I kind of regret that. I could have used them on this, but other than that, things are rocking along pretty good. Trying to keep you guys updated as best as I can. There's a lot of boring stuff going on right now. I don't want to over film. Okay, so as you can see here, the bed gap is a little too big, so we're going to bring that thing forward. That way, like I was saying, I can utilize that actual wheel well. If you see right now, almost looks like the tire is going to hit the front of the wheel well. So bring that bed forward, and then naturally as the suspension cycles, it is going to arch backwards anyways. So just trying to make the right choice here, because the last thing I want to do is chew up a set of $4,000 paddles. The front, I mean, it's a little scarce. Honestly, we don't really have that much room to play with it. So let's check out the other side. Same story. Oh well, we'll figure it out. We'll set it up with bumps. But yeah, our bed lines are looking pretty good. I'm gonna shim the front of that bed up just a hair. That way it lines up a lot better. Quite surprised, honestly, when we bought this truck. The body line from the bed to the cab was like dead on. So I kind of want to retain that, shim it up the best way that I can to make that happen. But yeah, I threw a level on the cab in the most, flat spot that I could, which was the core support, and it matches the frame pretty well, so can't really complain. Got to build some front cab mounts for this thing. This is going to turn into quite the project, and this is my favorite thing about this truck, and I want to keep it. The diamond stitched headliner. It's a little saggy right now, but I'm sure if I just pulled it, cut it, glued it up there, we'd be ready to go. Can't wait to see this thing all patinaed out. It's going to be so gangster. Next after the bed is I'm going to focus on doing the core support, making sure all that works. That's pretty important. And then all the odds and ends, the brakes, the hydro boost, the brake lines, the throttle cable assembly. Still don't know what I want to do on that. I might end up using a factory second gen. Oh yeah, thanks Tucker. Tucker is getting a surgery today, so now I got to play 2 phones. It's pretty awesome. Boom, a little something like that. 3/16 plate, 2 3/4 wide, 2 inches on the top, just so the body mount is fully engaged with the mount. 1/2 inch hole to allow me to move some stuff around. A couple of kickers, that way I can get in there, get the nut on there, thread it, tighten it with a wrench. Should be all good to go. I like that. That's not too bad. Sometimes I amaze myself. Other times I just, wow, I didn't have enough material to box in on this side, but I boxed in the other side. I'm gonna have to cut the tacks and get it adjusted to where the gap isn't so big, but for now I just need to get the cab held up. So now what we've been focusing on is the bed. We got the bed gap closed up, so it's a lot better. I mean, I can't make it perfect. Can't make it too close because, again, the cab and the bed will be moving very violently independently from each other, so we got to keep that in mind. Our next plan of attack here is mounting the bed, so I'm going to show you guys what's going on underneath here. So as you can see there, those little green pieces of tape that you can see are the AN fittings for the fuel cell itself. Those are just the bungs that are welded to the tank. Unfortunately, the height of the radius of the actual AN fitting, I think, is going to hit the bottom of the bed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop the tank down about another 1.5 inches. That way it gives us some clearance. So that will involve, quite simply, spacing the tank from the mounts that I built. Another thing that I want to focus on here is if you look up there, that carriage bolt is the factory bolt that was at the very back of the frame on the 69 chassis. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a bracket that comes up and is bent to hold the bottom of the bed off of the frame itself. So that'll give us a little bit of wiggle room, and that gives us another point to mount the bed. This bed was originally held down with 6 bed bolts. I think I'm just going to do 4, 2 in the front, 2 in the rear, just to make it simple. But yeah, to build a bracket that goes up 90 degrees out, has a hole in it, drop a new carriage bolt in, get those at Ace. Super simple, tighten it up, good to go. Other than that,
The mounting point for the air dog, that ain't gonna work anymore. The battery, not gonna work anymore. The battery's actually gonna end up in the back of the bed, which is fine. We'll figure that out, but yeah, not too bad. We should have done this originally, was just get one of these trucks and mount it. But for the amount of fabrication and all the work that we did prior, when we had the second gen body on it, we really don't have to change that much. I mean, the battery and the air dogs isn't the end of the world.
So while I'm in the middle of making chicken stew out of chicken you know what, somebody can't be left alone with his money.
I needed a new truck. So we kind of jumped the gun. Let's go to the other side that we haven't started on. So I've been looking, I've owned almost every Cummins.
New
except,
truck, man.
No. Except for a 4th gen. So I've been looking for a 4th gen for a long time, and I had a truck lined up, which was a 15 ASIN truck. I need a 1-ton, we need a long bed for towing. It's gonna be our Speed Lab tow rig, and then camping rig, family rig, all that. But I didn't want something super pristine because I just get weird, and then it's like my Duramax and it's parked in storage for 2 years. So something that was a little bit rough, but I still like my trucks nice. So we picked this thing up in Elko. It's about 4 hours away from Reno. And the only thing I don't love, it's a 12. But I don't know, I drove it. It drives really nice, having kind of the dated, front suspension and whatnot. It still drove really nice, but we are going to put our twist on this and do kind of just like a OEM plus build, new headlights, factory Laramie grill, factory bumper, stuff like that. I have 20-inch limited stocks that we're going to put on it, 35s. But the first thing we're going to do is paint correct this whole thing and wet sand it, buff it, and then all our Thurin goodies should show up next week, hopefully. Lower it down. It's on like a 6-inch lift right now, way too big for me, so we're going to lower it down. But kind of the selling point for me was it is a Laramie, and it's a G56 with 113,000 miles, which is nice. These trucks don't really have that many issues. All the issues I've seen have already been corrected. So we are doing our wet sanding process right now. I'm going and hitting all these kind of the bigger scratches like this with a 2500. It's like a little sanding sponge. And then we're doing the whole truck with 3000 because it has been neglected and we want it to be very shiny and new. So that'll be our first step, and we'll see if we can bring it back. If not, I've had a roll of vinyl wrap in my storage room for like 3 years. That's like a satin white. We might wrap it, but that's a lot of work. This is still a lot of work, but less. So, and I've never had blue. I think with everything on here, it'll be nice, but the front does have quite a few like stone chips and stuff, which just being a clear bra guy, not cool. But we'll see what we can get out of her. Driving an NV5600 in the 12 valve compared to this G56 shifts way better, way nicer, way smoother, I think. But she don't need much. I mean, I try to buy stock trucks that I haven't been messed with, but the price was right. We got new glass coming from our glass guy Fish, so that'll be about 6 to 8 months before we can get new glass. But this is what happens when you roll up and down your windows with these old felts. What happens, these felts wear away and rocks and stuff get stuck in there. Oh. So I've ordered new felts, new glass, put all that in there, and get her back to 2012 pimping. So
Okay, so now that we got the cab mounts all tacked up and the bed mounts all tacked up, Taylor and I decided that it's probably time to put everything back together, tighten the cab down, and cycle the suspension in the front. So that's what we're doing here, seeing our tire clearance and seeing if we have any issues. So what I'm gonna be looking for is I'm gonna pick up the passenger side independently from the driver. So pick up the passenger, cycle the wheel, spin the tire, turn it, see what we can find for clearance. I think we should be okay. But what I did end up doing is I installed Thurin's alien arms, their brackets, got them all bolted up to the axle. I installed Thurin's track bar with their beefed up frame side mount. So what that does for you is that mounts your axle forward and backward in frame and side to side. So now we're gonna pick it up. So I'm gonna pick this all the way up until it's pretty much touching the frame, which is unrealistic because of the fact that we are gonna have bump stops on this truck. But as you can see right now, we are touching the fender. So maybe if I pick this from the center, it is going to touch more in the center of the tire, if that makes sense, because it's cambering in, so you're getting more clearance this way. So if I put the tire straight, it's probably going to touch. Checking for clearance, Clarence. Roger, roger. So next, what I'm going to do, I'm going to put the bed on the truck. I'm going to take apart the rear leaf pack until it's just the top main spring. And what that allows you to do is that allows you to pick up on the axle without putting too much spring pressure upwards on the frame so it doesn't pick up, you know what I mean? So you can cycle the tires independently. So we'll do the same thing. You got to cycle one side, and then middle, see what you got. The rear is going to be a little bit more challenging, I think, because of the fact that the wheel well is not as big as this. Really hoping that we're going to be good to go, because as you can tell, we can't go further back with the cab. If we have to go further back with the bed, all that's going to do is just increase our bed gap. So just trying to keep it as proportionate as possible, but also use as much as the wheel well as we can. Worst case scenario, we just got to come up with the body and cab, which would suck because we really like where it's at right now. So okay, so we got the truck bed on. We got the custom lift blocks in there. That's to account for the height of the leaf spring pack. Our spring is relatively pretty darn flat, so I'm going to call that full bump. That's where I'm going to set the bumps up, is where the top leaf is realistically flat. So this is what we're rocking with, which is awesome. We are in the clear. The other side, the rear of the wheel well's caved in, so we got miles there. But yeah, looking pretty good here. I'm going to call this good to go. Bed can be mounted there. I still kind of want to cheat the cab forward a little bit, and we'll continue on from there. So we got the cab on, suspension cycled, everything clears, we're all good. We can go full bump with the front axle, full bump with the rear axle, full droop, everything's looking pretty good. So the next thing on our agenda is, I don't know if you can see that back there, that is the second gen radiator, our Mishimoto radiator. Plan is, now that we got the cab mounted, it's time to figure out how to plumb everything in the front, make sure that we have enough room to run a second gen radiator, see if we can run a second gen intercooler. That would make life a lot easier. But so what you do here is pull some measurements and just kind of wing it until you're ready to cut some sheet metal, because this pocket here is not wide enough for the second gen radiator. So we're just going to be pulling some measurements first and see what we can find. So check this out. This is our second gen radiator. I pulled a measurement on the width here. We're at 45 inches. It's 3.5 inches tall from the grommet to the top, which gives me a little bit of an idea. So then after that, we'll pull this measurement real quick. 45 by 21. So in order for the hood to shut, probably right about there. Oh yeah, we got plenty of room vertically. So when I do this, I typically, I'll take a Sharpie and I'll mark the middle of the core support right here. So half of 45 is 22.5. So we'll pull it to 22.5, that's right there, which is gonna give us a very tight fit side to side for like the wheel wells and stuff like that, or the tubs. But unfortunately, we don't really have a choice, you know? Kind of gotta stuff that radiator in here. But I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say we are not gonna be able to run that second gen intercooler, because that is gonna be massive. Maybe what I can do is put both on the inside, you know? Maybe, probably not. As you can see here, these are the tabs I was talking about. This just used to hold on to the sides of the factory radiator. But what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna pull the core support off. I'm gonna cut these flush, grind them, and see if I can't get the intercooler. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to cut this straight down, get rid of this tab, both sides, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the core support back on the truck, and then I'll try and stuff the intercooler in here and the radiator and see what we can get away with. But at minimum, these have to come out anyways to fit the radiator if we just put the radiator in there. So I'm trying to cut as minimal as possible. So if I can't fit the intercooler and I can't fit the radiator together, then I can just get away with the radiator. So kind of what we got going on here. I cut the fronts out, kept it to where it's pretty rigid, kept like it from losing its strength, if that makes sense. But I put the radiator in there. It is sitting on the frame rail right now, so it will have to come up a little bit just to clear that. But
I don't know if you're picking up what I'm putting down. I might have enough room to cram that intercooler in there. I might have to trim just a little bit, but honestly, this might be the move. I should be able to get the radiator up just enough to where I can put the shroud on, and then everything will be hidden behind the factory grill and all that. That might be really cool to do because I don't want to have to gut the grill to make the intercooler fit. But yeah, this might be the best way to go about this, honestly. So this is what we're rocking with. I think this is going to be just fine. I can't get the radiator to sit down all the way because these pieces of 2x4 are in the way, which are holding up the intercooler. But yeah, this is actually a blessing in disguise. We can make this work just fine. I'll be able to run the fan shroud. I'll have a good gap between the intercooler, or between the radiator and the fan. Just got to try and get the intercooler as close as I can to the core support. Alright, so I did exactly that. I held the intercooler in, drilled a hole, mounted it with the factory hardware. It's still a little sideways, but again, this is all just for mock-up. But we got clearance. As you can see, the fan is about 1 inch away, which is pretty cool to me. And I can still run the factory shroud, and the fan has plenty of room. The plan is here to reuse those factory mounts, gusset up to the core support, and then figure out how to mount the radiator to the core support as well. If I can't figure out how to do that cleanly, I'm just going to mount both of them to the frame. Might be a little hard, but I think if I tie the bottom into the frame, and then at the top, I utilize these rubber grommets and build a mount and a spacer off of there, we should be good. Yeah, that's a big feat right there. That's huge. So I can reuse the factory coolant hoses too. And I still got plenty of room for that fan, and it's like good side to side and up and down. Even with moving the motor back 5 inches, what that did was allow me to move the cooling stack 5 inches back, which just happened to land right behind the core support, which is, I mean, you can't really complain about that. If you think about it, if we kept the engine exactly where it was, that would be 5 inches further forward. This is 3 inches thick. That's probably about 2 inches right there. That would have put you out in front of the grill, which would have been very ugly. Yeah, we accomplished that. That's good. The hard part about this is the turbos, mounting the turbos and being able to hook up to that, which this is a tight radius right here. Atmospheric charger, that's the high pressure charger. This would be the atmospheric charger, which would be right about here. And the snout of the charger, the compressor side of it, would have to be plumbed into the front of that turbo. And we still got to be able to get that would be the compressor outlet of the high pressure charger. We'll have to snake down and around to here and not interrupt this, if that makes sense. So it'll probably be something along the lines of down and around up to here, maybe. Or maybe we just make this out of an AN fitting like we did on the C20, do a dash 20 and a braided line on that, just so we can customize it and get it out of the way as much as possible. Yeah, we got a lot of room, but it gets real tight real quick, especially when you're running 3.5 inch piping. But I think if I mount the intercooler and the radiator to the frame, then it will move with the engine, because you got to think this truck isn't just driving down the street. It will be, but maybe if I mount it to the frame, it'll be a lot more sturdy, and we won't have to worry about cracking welds for the intercooler piping, or worry about a sudden jolt causing the fan to make contact with the radiator. I don't know. Kind of got to weigh out our options here. It would be a lot cooler if it was all mounted to the core support and integrated into that, but kind of got to find your happy medium, you know? So we'll see. Trying to figure out the best way to go about this. I am the king of ratchet straps. I promise you that. Anyways, this is what I came up with. So this is our upper radiator mount. I had to make this one angled to be able to clear the round part of this. I like it. Looks pretty good. I'm still utilizing the factory grommet. And then down low is where I had to get a little tricky. So that's 1/4 inch thick, 2 inch wide flat strap, holding the bottom of the radiator I mean, it's pretty solid. So being mounted to the frame, it's going to move with the engine. And being mounted with a grommet up top to the core support is going to allow for the vibration and the tilting of the cab. And then being mounted with the factory grommet up top is going to allow for the flex of the frame and the articulation of the core support versus the chassis. So yeah, I'm going to button up the other side. The reason why I have the ratchet strap is because it was kind of sitting sideways for some reason. So now it's not going to sit sideways. It'll sit exactly how I want it. Now that radiator has a gnarly bend to it. Oh well, it don't leak. We're running it.
All right, so on our side quest for this week, I did need a new tow rig. I think we filmed a little bit of when we first got it. This is where we're at now. Paint, we buffed it. It's still kind of so there's just a lot of chips and rock chips in the front, and I don't really like blue, so we're probably going to wrap it. But we just did kind of simple tow rig setup. You know, we plan on having this thing dialed to where we can go a little bit farther and not be worried about, you know, the truck and the tow rig and all that. I mean, I'll be able to hook up anything I own to this and it won't really even sweat it. But it's a 2012 Ram 3500 long bed G56 truck, which took a while to find. We ended up doing full Thurin kit on the front and the rear. So we did their 3-inch soft ride coils, their sway bar, their track bar, Fox 2.0s, 3IZs front and rear. We plan on doing a free spin kit, and I'm still just waiting on some pieces to show up from eBay. Oh yeah, Toyo AT3s. I've probably bought 13 sets of Toyo AT3s. Best tire, hands down. Never had an issue. And my van's going on, what, 40,000 miles on the set? And they still look great. But if you're looking for a tire, Toyo AT3 all day long. I even got Bryce running them. I got everybody running them. If I had a car, I would put them on a car, like a Subaru. I would do it. Yeah, it's a cool truck so far. It's been great. But changed the oil. We went through all the fluids. And this will be its first test. We're going to go out in the middle of the desert and go chase coyotes this weekend. So we'll see how she does. But I like it so far. And then thanks for watching this week. Still got a lot of stuff to do. We're kind of at this point where we're waiting on parts for the Sweptline, but they should be rolling in early next week, so we can keep banging on that. But thanks for watching.